Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll be starting in 5 minutes.
Hello everyone. On behalf of Department of Commerce, PGDAV College Evening, I welcome you to this webinar. Stock market trading for beginners. Our guest has joined. I will be handing over to Ishan, the Secretary of the Commerce Association, President of the Commerce Association rather. I request all of the students to keep your audio and video on mute. And if you have any questions, wait till the talk is over and then type it in the chat box. Questions will be answered one by one. I hand over now to Ishan to start the proceedings. Thank you.
Good afternoon to one and all present here, honorable guests, Ms. Tarna Gupta ma'am and Rishabh Jain sir, respected principal sir, teachers, and my dear friends. I, Ishan Sharma, President of the Commerce Association of PGDAV Evening College, welcome you all to this webinar, Stock Market Trading for Beginners. Ms. Tarini Gupta is the co-founder of DalalStreet.ai, a startup launched top assist equity fund management. She's an alumnus of the University of Warwick Business School, and has expertise in business, marketing, consumer behavior, public relation management, and related support services. Rishabh likes to evolve. Rishabh likes to revolve himself around the financial and economic knowledge. He works at DalalStreet.ai. He loves to keep track of the stock market and what drives their prices to fluctuate. Now, I request our speakers to take over the webinar.
Thank you for the introduction, Ishan. I just have one question. So we do have a PPT presentation that will assist us with the entire webinar. So can I just request whoever is going to be presenting that to please share their screen?
Sure, ma'am, just a minute.
Okay, no problem. In the meanwhile, good afternoon. We're almost in the afternoon now. It's 12 o'clock. And happy Diwali to everyone who's here. My name is Tarini, as Ishan did mention, and I am the co-founder of Dalal Street. Today, I'm here with my colleague Rishabh to take you guys through the introduction of the stock markets. And Rishabh is with me today. He works with us in our financial analysis team. He's a big part of the organization. And yes, Rishabh, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Hello everyone. So my name is Rishabh, and as Tarini mentioned, I work at DalalStreet.ai in the financial analyst and R&D department. So I just hope that everyone learns a lot about the stock market from this webinar.
Great. So we understand that, the concept of stock markets, investments, and tradings are quite new for most of you guys present here today. Of course, some of you might have a lot more experience in it, but we are going to take this as though it might be your first leap into it. So in the end, we're going to also have a short Q&A if we have time, and if not, you guys can always feel free to reach out to us. The way we're going to conduct this session is, first, Rishabh will take you guys through some of the basic concepts of what is the stock market, how does it function, because if this is not clear to everyone, then the preceding information will not make any sense. So Rishabh, why don't you start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So before I start, I would like all of you to think about the next few concepts. As any market, a market in your community or a neighborhood, think of each actor and each influences as they will act in a regular food market or a vegetable market. It can be anything, right? So yeah, first let's come on to the stock exchange part. So everyone might be aware that we have two stock exchanges in India, that is BSE and NSE. So first of all, what is stock exchange? It's a centralized location where the shares of publicly traded companies are bought and sold. It acts as a facilitator for capital raising process for the companies, and it receives a fee for its services from the company and its financial partners. It performs price matching function to facilitate trade execution. Suppose if one investor wants to buy a quantity of stock and another wants to sell the same quantity at the same price, their order matches and the transaction happens. Its important function is it's provide liquidity in the market. Suppose, for example, it's a ready platform for purchase and sale of securities where investor is confident and can convert their existing investment into cash as per their needs. It's an attractive feature as compared to other illiquid investments such as real estate, right? So almost all the firms in India are listed on NSE or BSE. So stock exchange maintain all the company news announcement, and it is easily accessible on their official website. It supports various other corporate level transaction related activities. For instance, profitable companies may reward investors by paying dividend, which usually comes from a part of the company earnings. So can you please move on to the next slide? The next. Okay, so let's come on to the stock market part. So stock market functions are carried out by, of course, stock exchanges. Stock market, you can call it as equity market. It's a series of exchanges where shares in public companies are issued, bought, and sold. Its role is to give private investor a way to own a stake in a listed company while providing companies themselves with capital to reinvest in their business for expansion. Since the stock market brings together hundreds of thousands of market participants who wish to buy and sell shares, it ensures fair pricing practices and transparency in the transaction. Through stock market, a savings of an individuals are channelized into the productive investment proposals. It's a great and a fair platform for individual mutual funds to invest their funds here and earn higher returns. So in long term, it leads to capital formation and economic growth. So economy and stock are intertwined. For example, if India's economy is going well and showing positive signs, then people will gain confidence and start investing more in the Indian stock market, and it happens vice versa, of course. Uh, can you move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so here we come to the functions of stock market in India. So as I explained you before, that stock market provides liquidity and marketability to existing securities. Investor can convert their existing investment into cash at any time. It also performs the pricing of security function. So it helps to value securities on the basis of demand and supply factor. Suppose if the demand of a particular stock increases and supply decreases, then that stock will fall down. So it provides safety of transaction. Stock exchange authorities include the company names of the trade list only after verifying the soundness of the company. It needs to guidelines and rules prescribe exchange. It contributes to the economic growth. It leads to the capital formation. It also helps in spreading of equity culture in India. So stock exchange have extensive information on the listed company, which is further available to the public. This data helps in educating public about investments in securities, and thereby it leads to the spreading of wider ownership of shares. It also provides scope for speculation. Suppose a security, when purchased solely with a view of gaining profit through price movement to a target, it's called speculation. So it provides scope with the provision of law for speculating in a restricted and in a controlled manner. So yeah, Tarini, can you please take it forward from here?
Yeah, sure. So can we just change the slide, please? Great. So it was very essential for everyone to understand that a stock market or the stock exchange really does function like any market that you see. It could be a fruit and vegetable market, it could be a community market, but if you understand that that's exactly how the stock market works, that there are different factors, there are different influences that affect each other, then it will make the entire process for you much easier. So Rishabh did mention that it is exactly like any other market that you might have around you. And so just through this entire webinar, think of it in that perspective. So now that you understand the basics of it, let's go on to understanding who are the users, who are the influencers, and who are the different actors in the stock markets. So there are various different participants. So you guys might have heard of the long-term investors and the short-term traders, but there are actually many, many different types of players that are associated with the stock market. And each unique role, is present there just like any other market. But many of the roles are actually intertwined, and a lot of them actually depend on each other to make the market run effectively. So if you see on this page, there are different participants, and they can essentially be categorized into companies, investors, traders, stockbrokers, stock exchange, financial intermediaries like banks, and of course the regulators, like any other kind of system has. It has people to regulate and see whether fair practices are going on. So let's go into each of them a little more in detail. So if you take the companies, companies are from various different sectors, and they participate in the stock markets by filing an IPO. And during this entire COVID or pre-COVID, you guys all must have seen that there were lots of IPOs that were meant to come out. And then because of COVID, they were kind of halted and paused. So one big example is Airbnb. You can take Burger King. Burger King actually filed their IPO, their first filing was last year in November. And as soon as COVID hit, there was a lot of uncertainty. So they put a pause on that. And now they've gone back into releasing their final IPO. Similarly, the same case is for Airbnb, and just like that, there are various others that are now coming up with their IPOs. So a company uses the money that they raised from the IPO to expand the business, or usually meet some working capital requirement that they're not able to meet at this current moment with the kind of funds they have. Then you have investors and traders. These are the ones that all of you might be seeing around you, whether it's people in your family, your friends, or even yourselves. There are a lot of young people nowadays who are trading or wanting to enter the trading domain. So the stock market attracts individuals and corporations from various backgrounds who transact in the stocks or shares. Usually traders look for short-term gains, while investors, they try to hold their investments for a long term. They try to be patient. They try to believe in a certain company, a certain stock, and investors can essentially be categorized. So, you just hear the term investor, but actually even within the term investor, there are various types of investors. So, first you might have the domestic retail participants, which are people like you and I that transact in the stock markets. Then you might have domestic institutions. Then you might have domestic asset management companies, and then of course you also have your foreign institutional investors. These are usually non-Indian corporate entities or organizations, like hedge funds, AMCs, etc. And then you have NRIs, OCIs, etc. So even though one might think that investors are just one kind, there are actually various others that a lot of people are not aware of. And each of these investors, they invest with totally different mindsets. They invest with totally different goals. So that's why it's important to understand what are the different types that are there in the market. Then, of course, you have the financial intermediaries, which play their role very quietly behind the scenes. They always comply with the rules that are laid out by the SEBI. I'm sure all of you have heard about the SEBI. They basically ensure that there's smooth experience, smooth transactions in the stock market. They are very interdependent. They try to create an ecosystem where each person, whoever is participating, is getting their fair share, or regulating if there are any fair practices, unfair practices that are going on. Then we come down to the depositories, which sometimes referred to as DP, or the depository participants. And essentially, when you buy a share, the only way that you can actually claim your ownership is by producing a share certificate. So a share certificate is a piece of document that entitles you as the owner of the share of a company. And actually, before 1996, the share certificate was in a paper format. But of course, with digitalization and everything, the share certificates were converted to the digital form. So this was post 1996. And the entire process of converting a share certificate from paper to digital format was known as dematerialization. And often, it's abbreviated as DMAT, which is why the account that you guys all hear of often is called the DMAT account. So think of the DMAT account as a digital vault for your shares. It's almost like a wallet, which keeps a track of what your shares are. It keeps a hold of what your ownerships are. It's your little bank, and you can think of a DMAT account just similarly. So a depository offers DMAT account services. In India, you have the NSDL, CDSL, and you can go into a lot more detail. But you cannot open a DMAT account directly through a depository. You have to do it through a depository participant. And a DP usually acts as an agent to the depository. It helps you set up your DMAT account. It's governed and regulated by the SEBI. So whatever is happening is very regulated, highly regulated. There's a lot of rules that they have to follow. Then you have things like the clearing corporation, which ensures that guaranteed settlements of your trades are done. So if you take an example, it kind of identifies buyers and sellers, and it matches the entire debit and credit process. So for example, if you buy one share of Reliance and you say that it's about 900 rupees, there must be someone who has sold that share to you for 900 rupees. So hence you will be debited with 900 from your trading account, and whoever has sold it to you will be credited with that 900. So the clearing corporation ensures that all this is done. Everyone receives what they're meant to receive. Then moving on, you have the banks which facilitate all this fund transfer. Then, of course, you have the stock exchange, which Rishabh did talk about. You have stockbrokers. And the stockbroker is probably one of the most important financial intermediaries that you guys need to know. A stockbroker or a share broker is registered as a trading member with the stock exchange, and it holds a stockbroking license, which is why they can actually do this transaction for you. Again, they operate under the guidelines prescribed by SEBI. They do the entire buying and selling of the securities for people like you and me who are retail investors or traders, and also institutional clients through the exchange, and usually they take a sort of a fee or a commission. So a stockbroker usually associated as a brokerage firm or a broker dealer. And there are two essential type of stockbrokers, and the type of stockbrokers will be defined by the kind of license they hold, the type of securities that they sell, and mainly what are the services that they provide. And I think it's very important for people who are beginning to actually do a big analysis and a big study before they choose their stockbroker, because it is the most important thing for when you are a beginner especially. So let's go into a little bit more detail, because when I actually started my journey, I made the biggest mistake by choosing a wrong stockbroker, which kind of delayed my entire trading investment journey. I chose the wrong stockbroker because I chose services that I did not require as a beginner. So I wasted a lot of money in the process. Similarly, I wasted a lot of time because it was a lot more complicated. So essentially, there are two different types of brokers. And we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so we'll go on into the different types of market in a few minutes, but let me just continue with the types of different brokers. So the first type is the full service broker, which offers the largest collection of diversified financial services, and they usually assign a licensed individual broker to each client. So you have a lot of kind of support through your journey. They tend to have their own R&D, investment banking divisions. They tend to give you their own recommendations. They also have access to a lot of IPOs that a lot of people don't have access to. People like you and me will have, if we took the services of a full service broker, we would have the option of calling them at any point, asking for any sort of help, guidance. And now a lot of these people have access to websites, desktop, mobile applications, things like that. But they usually charge a very, very high commission. Full service brokers also have physical offices across various locations. So an example could be ICICI Bank. They offer a lot of different services, more than just brokerage. It's like asset management, banking services, things like that. So essentially, they are like a holistic place where you go and you get all your financial services taken care of. And that's the kind of mistake I made when I was a beginner, because I didn't require any other services except for a brokerage. And that's why I made my first mistake. That was my first mistake. And that's why it's so essential for all of you to understand what is it that you need from these brokers, and then go on to choosing. So the second and very common ones today with the young population especially are the discount brokers. And when you compare them to a full service broker, they charge a very less commission on the brokerage or on the trading of the securities. And therefore, a lot of people who trade with high frequencies, or people like swing traders, day traders, and active investors, they generally choose these discount brokers because they save a lot on the brokerage, because a lot of the time they charge on per trade, per trade execution and things like that. So let's take an example. Zerodha is a discount broker which charges about, I think, around 20 rupees on each intraday trade, irrespective of the number of shares that are involved in the trade. And this is excluding any other statutory kind of charges. And when you guys do start your trading or investing journey, another thing to really do your research. It's publicly available online, so that's not a problem. You can just do a Google search, but it is to understand what are the different fees and charges that you will that you will face. This was another problem. So when I did start my trading journey, I did not know what were the different charges. I had no idea. So only when I actually started doing it through the process, I started realizing that I'm having to spend on X, Y, and Z as well. And if I did know these things before, I would have accounted them when making my trade decisions or my investment decisions, for example. So Zerodha, they do not charge any brokerage on equity and mutual fund investments. However, if you take a full service broker like Kotak or ICICI Bank, they charge 0.04 rupees per share intraday, and they have lots of different charges which are usually higher than a discount broker. But the thing here is that discount brokers generally do not offer personal consultations, advice, research. A lot of times they don't even offer recommendations. Now they have started coming into those kind of things. So we've kind of covered most of the different participants. We also have the regulators, which I have been enforcing a lot on, things like the SEBI, which regulate the NSE, BSE, things like that. So let's kind of move on now to the different types of stock markets. Rishabh, why don't you take that?
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. So here we come to the types of stock market. So there are basically two types of stock market in India. First, it's primary market, and secondary, it's secondary market. Yeah. So first of all, what is primary market? It's a part of the capital market that deals with the issue of new securities to investor. Here, the investor buys securities that were never traded before. Each company plans to offer its share for public trading must start with the initial public offering, or I call it as an IPO. In this process, the company offers a part of its total equity to the public for raising capital initially. Once the IPO is complete, the stocks so offered are listed on the stock exchange for further trading. The entire process of introducing the IPO by a company takes place in the primary market. In other words, the market comprises only the IPO introduction and investment. Let's come on to the secondary market. Once the shares have already been listed on either of the exchanges, so further trading for them is held in the secondary market. While investors who fail to purchase shares in the primary market can do so here, it also opens up as an opportunity for a wide range of traders to invest in such stocks. Also, another typical characteristics of the secondary equity market is that the trading here is usually done via intermediaries known as stockbrokers. Tarini, can you please take it from here?
Yeah, sure. So let's move on to the next slide, please. So we have a short video which, is very interesting to wrap up everything that we've kind of spoken about as well. Can we just have a look at that if it's not a problem? I think you might need to unmute yourself.
Audio's not coming here. No,
I think try
No,
now.
Gaurav.
I think I have to present again. Just a second.
No problem.
In the 1600s, the Dutch East India Company employed hundreds of ships to trade gold, porcelain, spices, and silks around the globe. But running this massive operation wasn't cheap. In order to fund their expensive voyages, the company turned to private citizens, individuals who could invest money to support the trip in exchange for a share of the ship's profits. This practice allowed the company to afford even grander voyages, increasing profits for both themselves and their savvy investors. Selling these shares in coffee houses and shipping ports across the continent, the Dutch East India Company unknowingly invented the world's first stock market. Since then, companies have been collecting funds from willing investors to support all kinds of businesses. And today, the stock market has schools, careers, and even whole television channels dedicated to understanding it. But the modern stock market is significantly more complicated than its original incarnation. So how do companies and investors use the market today? Let's imagine a new coffee company that decides to launch on the market. First, the company will advertise itself to big investors. If they think the company is a good idea, they get the first crack at investing and then sponsor the company's initial public offering, or IPO. This launches the company onto the official public market, where any company or individual who believes the business could be profitable might buy a stock. Buying stocks makes those investors partial owners in the business. Their investment helps the company to grow, and as it becomes more successful, more buyers may see potential and start buying stocks. As demand for those stocks increases, so does their price, increasing the cost for prospective buyers and raising the value of the company's stocks people already own. For the company, this increased interest helps fund new initiatives and also boosts its overall market value by showing how many people are willing to invest in their idea. However, if for some reason a company starts to seem less profitable, the reverse can also happen. If investors think their stock value is going to decline, they'll sell their stocks with the hopes of making a profit before the company loses more value. As stocks are sold and demand for the stock goes down, the stock price falls, and with it, the company's market value. This can leave investors with big losses, unless the company starts to look profitable again. This seesaw of supply and demand is influenced by many factors. Companies are under the unavoidable influence of market forces, such as the fluctuating price of materials, changes in production technology, and the shifting costs of labor. Investors may be worried about changes in leadership, bad publicity, or larger factors like new laws and trade policies. And of course, plenty of investors are simply ready to sell valuable stocks and pursue personal interests. All these variables cause day-to-day noise in the market, which can make companies appear more or less successful. And in the stock market, appearing to lose value often leads to losing investors, and in turn, losing actual value. Human confidence in the market has the power to trigger everything from economic booms to financial crises. And this difficult-to-track variable is why most professionals promote reliable long-term investing over trying to make quick cash. However, experts are constantly building tools in efforts to increase their chances of success in this highly unpredictable system. But the stock market is not just for the rich and powerful. With the dawn of the internet, everyday investors can buy stocks in many of the exact same ways a large investor would. And as more people educate themselves about this complex system, they too can trade stocks, support the businesses they believe in, and pursue their financial goals. The first step is getting invested. Interested in pursuing your own financial goals? Download a free audio version of The Richest Man in Babylon on audible.com/TED-Ed. You'll not only get timeless advice on making
Omkar, we
and
cannot cut that.
investing money, but also an imaginative
much.
take on
So the reason to show you guys this video was firstly to understand how the entire stock markets even came about. And the East India Company is actually one of my most favorite to study. I studied it in school, and I didn't realize how many of the different economic and business practices actually came out of that. It was the first time, one of the first times in the world where any sort of globalization or international trade took place. And so regardless of the stock markets, the East India Company is one that all of you guys should look into, that all of you should study and understand, because a lot of the practices that you see around you today have been developed based on simply just that. So now we come to stock indexes, which is also something that you guys should know, because a lot of people rely on their trading and investing decisions based on these different indexes. And an index usually is sort of like a measure of a stock market in general, that helps investors compare the current price levels with the past prices to calculate market performances. So a lot of times, people don't actually sit and study each individual stock, but they take an index, they measure the index, they observe the index, and then they make the decision on what sort of market is it at the current moment, or what is the future market going to be like based on the past prices, based on the past performances of these stock indexes. So as important as it is to start understanding how to analyze, measure, and observe the patterns of a stock, a particular stock or a company, it's equally important to understand how you can utilize stock indexes in the best way possible. So there are two types of primary criteria of an index, that is investable and which is transparent. So an index consists of very similar stocks. When they create this index, it's like a basket of different stocks which are similar. So they have to consist of similar stocks because you have to compare them at the end of the day. And these can be based on the different industries, on the company size, or the market capitalization, or on any other parameter. But end of the day, it has to be something that is comparable. So they have to be similar. Once the stocks are selected, then the index value is calculated. And in India, the free float market capitalization is commonly used instead of prices to calculate the value of an index. And you can study that in a lot more detail if that is something you want to look into. So there are two types of indexes. We have the market cap, which is the first one, which you guys may have heard of a lot. The stock market is broadly divided on the basis of market capitalization among large cap, mid cap, and small cap. So what is really the market capitalization? It's the total market value of a company's stock. It's calculated by multiplying the number of outstanding shares that a company offers with the current price of one of the shares. And that is why it kind of takes into account and consideration both the size and the price of the stock. So sometimes people calculate these indexes based on market cap. Then you have the price weighted index, which is another method, and this index value is calculated on the basis of a company's stock price and not the market cap. So stocks with higher prices have a greater weighting in the index as compared to stocks with lower prices. And in the US, there are different kind of examples of indexes you can take, which is like the Dow Jones, and there are so many. In Japan, there's something called the Nikkei 225, and there are various others. So if you go to the next slide, we have one more video which is short. We can go over that quickly. Let's see how long that is, Omkar, please. It'll help you understand what a stock index is more than just reading it. So the way I actually learn best is when I read something, then I see a visual representation of the same thing, and that's when I truly understand the meaning of it, which is why we really emphasize on also integrating few videos, short.
What is an index? Presented by WallStreetSurvivor.com. An index is a quick and easy way to get an idea about how a general market is performing. High school and is running for class president. Before the election, Jessica wants to see how she stands to find out what her chances are of winning. So what's the alternative? Instead, Jessica decides to poll a sample of students to at least get an idea of the percentage of students that would vote for her. It's not a perfect solution, but it's much easier. Similarly, an index is a sample of stocks that provide a glimpse at the broader market. When you hear someone say the market is up 100 points, the market they're referring to is an index. There are three major US indices: the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq Composite Index. The Dow is the oldest and most famous index. It takes a weighted average of the 30 largest stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. These 30 stocks are so heavily traded that they represent the majority of the market volume. Therefore, these 30 stocks are generally a good indicator of the entire market. The S&P, the 500 most widely held stocks on the market. These 500 stocks account for approximately 70% of the entire market. Most professionals use the S&P's performance as their benchmark. Lastly, the Nasdaq looks at over 3,000 stocks. The Nasdaq used to be an index exclusively for tech stocks, but has grown to include a few stocks from different industries as well. You can learn more about indices by checking out WallStreetSurvivor.com.
Great, thank you for that, Omkar. Let's move on to the next slide whenever you can. So essentially, if you guys did understand what is the role of a stock index. It gives you a way to sort out the different stocks. It gives you a representation of how the market is actually performing. It lets you compare the different stocks. It lets you compare different markets. And it has these different values which a lot of people do compare, and they actually use to make the investing and trading decisions, which is why understanding the different stock indexes are equally as important as doing anything else when you start trading or investing. So I'm not going to go into this in a lot more detail because we are running out of time. So can we move on to the next slide, please? Omkar, can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So how do you actually start trading? What is your trading journey? When I did start my trading journey, I didn't have a lot of help. So whatever I did was kind of online from whatever resources I had online, which is why I did make a lot of different mistakes, which, now I've realized over time, over experience, that I did make those mistakes. I could have been a lot more efficient. But essentially, first thing is to select your broker. This is the most important thing. And for this, you need to understand what kind of trading, what kind of investment, whether it's trading or investment, what do you want to engage in? And you have to, in my opinion, be slightly niche when you do start, so that you can understand and take the best decisions, the decisions that are most effective and most cost effective for you, because you're a beginner at the end of the day. So very important to understand what the different stock brokers, types of brokers offer, and then select your broker. So once you have selected a broker, it's now time to open your Demat and trading account. You can open your Demat account by filling out now an online form and submitting the necessary documents. Everything has become online, especially post-COVID. I remember when I did create my Demat account, I actually had the broker who came to my house to take my signature, to take my cancel check. They need a lot of different things, so they actually came home. But obviously with COVID, they have started making even digital signatures more necessary. They don't require a hard copy of that. So you'll be required to send in some cases, they might ask you to send physical copies of your documents as proof for some security reasons. But after your documents have been verified by the trading platform, it takes just a few hours sometimes to start your trading journey. And you can start your trading journey almost immediately. And the market hours are from 9:15 to about 3:30 p.m. in India. You can start your trading journey almost the next day. So that is basically how it's not a long journey. With these discount brokers like Angel Broking, Zerodha, you can just log on. There's someone who calls you, who helps you through the process if required, and almost immediately, like it does not even take a few hours, and you can start your trading journey. So it's not difficult at all. It's just important to know what are the different documents that you require. And at the Lal Street, we actually have a detailed YouTube video on our YouTube channel that talks about these different documents and what you need to have in place when you are setting up your Demat account. So let's move on to the next slide. We can move on to the next one because I did talk about this already. Thank you. So essentially, when you are starting your journey in the stock markets, as I have emphasized already a great deal, is you need to understand the difference between investing and trading. And if you talk about investing, it's usually done by people who have a long-term vision. People have a plan that they want to stick by. These are usually done to fulfill specific goals. Whether it might be saving for college for some people, it might be saving for retirement, or it might be even becoming financially independent in the next, 3 to 5 years or something like that. But it's for people who are looking at a much longer time perspective. So that requires a lot of patience, because it is very tempting, and this is where people make a mistake, that if there is a change in the market environment, if there is a change in the sentiments, they usually change their strategy. And that's where people make the most mistake. And that's why you might hear that in stock markets, the main thing is to be patient. Then when you kind of come down to trading requires a lot more work on a daily basis, and also a lot more time investment, because you are required to be in constant kind of communication and interaction with what is happening around you, whether it is the news, if there's new developments, if there are new changes in the price. Every little price change makes a difference to traders, especially day traders. The moves are a lot more frequent. Day trading, intraday trading is multiple times a day, and because of that, there's a lot more transaction fee that is involved. So essentially, if you look at the difference between investing and trading, there's a massive difference between the purpose. that you start with. Also, the duration. Investment is, as I said, often held for a period of time, while trading is a lot more frequent, multiple times a day, multiple times a week. Then there is a different skill or a different art that you require for each. So investing is an art of creating wealth by compounding interest and dividend over years by holding quality stocks that you believe in, that you believe will prosper. While trading is almost a skill of timing the market and timing when the prices will rise and fall, and then kind of getting a profit from that. And of course, the main thing is the risk and return with these two different sorts. So if you look at investing, it involves comparatively lower risks and lower returns in the short run, but they might deliver a lot of high returns in the long term if you invest and if you hold it for a long period of time, if you're patient. So I actually know of someone who in about 2009 bought a bunch of Reliance stocks, and they spent around 30,000-40,000 rupees on that. And just a few years ago, I got a call from them and they told me that my 30,000-40,000 has become 7-8 lakhs, and they had actually invested that money and totally forgotten about it, but they realized that 30,000-40,000 actually gave them such a big growth simply because they quite literally forgot about it. They were patient in a sense, and they invested. So it does have, if you are patient, if you give it time, it does have a lot of long-term growth and profit for you. And comparatively, trading involves higher risk, but also a higher potential return, as the price might go high or low very quickly in a short while. So it's very essential to understand these different types. So can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so there are essentially three ways where how stocks are categorized, and a lot of times people ask that how should one select a stock? How should one choose which stock, or what are the types of stocks that I should actually start trading or investing in? And here, this slide is where your answers will kind of come through for this. So there are three ways that stocks are categorized, and this is very important for everyone to know, because this is how you will choose if you are a trader or if you are an investor, and what kind of trader investor you will be. It will also help you select which stocks you should buy or sell. So the first way is to see and analyze what is the size of the company, how big is the company. This is calculated usually by market capitalization, which we spoke about earlier. It takes into account stock prices and the number of shares that are available. There are lots of different examples, which are small cap, mid cap, large cap. I'm sure these are kind of terms. So this is one way that you can categorize the stocks. The second way is to understand what is the style of stock. So, is it a growth stock or is it an income stock? Which stock is it really like? So if you're looking for growth stocks, you're usually looking for the price of your stock to go up, up, and your capital to be appreciated. So you're looking to make money grow. So if you invest or trade in growth stocks, you're looking to make your money grow. And people interested in growth stocks look at revenue, they look at sales. Are your sales growing? How's your cash position? They're looking for the revenue to rapidly increase. And, this is where you look at higher price to earning ratios. You want your price to earning ratios of this company to be higher than the industry and with the market. And these growth stocks have no dividend usually. They focus on reinvesting the cash into the company, growing the company, and the owners of the stocks are usually okay with that. They want the company to grow because they want long-term kind of gains. So they reinvest these stocks. They usually don't get a dividend out of it. And a good example of this might be Google or various other technology stocks. So then when you look at income stocks, so we're still talking about style as the way to categorize them. And we've spoken about growth stocks, and now I'm coming to income stocks. So this is almost the clear opposite of a growth stock. They want to pay a dividend. These companies want to pay a dividends. They're also known as value stocks. An example of this might be Coca-Cola. They want to grow, but they are not a high growth company. They're a steady growth company. They want to pay their investors a dividend. The investors want to gain this dividend. So it's a two-way stream, what the investor wants and what the company wants. And then you have the value stocks, which are lower priced, relative to fundamentals. And, there's a lot more that you can go into detail. So second, first we discussed what is the size. You look at the size of the company, then you look at the style of the company, the stock, and now the third way is to look at the sector. So it's usually which industry it belongs to, whether it's energy, whether it's beverage, whether it's transport, whether it's hospitality, whatever it might be. So sectors where you look at what are the industry that it is coming from, what part of the economy does the company belong to, and what is their primary business. So if you look at during COVID, the healthcare sector was booming. People were investing, and how in this sector people were getting great amount of return. So this is where you see what are the sector that your company or that the stock you might want to invest or trade in belongs to. So that is kind of a good way to start, when you are starting your journey as to understanding what you want to invest or trade in, choosing the company, choosing the stocks. Do it this way, look at the size, look at the style, look at the sector. Choose either one of these to focus on, and that's how you should actually begin. So let's move on to the next slide. So essentially, when somebody does start trading or they does start investing, there are three different sorts of analysis that is done. The main ones are fundamental, technical, and sentimental. And in fact, those of you who don't know what the largestreet.ai is, our algorithm, our AI fund manager actually does all three of these analysis for the people to advise them on their trading and stocks. So if you look at fundamental analysis, it's a method of measuring a security's intrinsic value by examining the different economic and financial factors. So if someone is a fundamental analyst, they study anything that can affect the security's value, from macroeconomic factors such as what is the state of the economy or the industry, what are the conditions, the factors, what are the effectiveness of the company's management. They even look at how good is the management, who is the top, who is the head of the company. And a lot of times you see when there's a change in leadership, when a CEO is changed, another one is coming on, there's a lot of impact on the stocks based on what confidence the people have in that leader. So for fundamental analysis, a lot of different things are taken into consideration. It's a method of determining a stock's real or fair market value. And fundamental analysts, they search for stocks that are currently trading at prices that are higher or lower than their real value. So if the fair market value is higher than the market price, then the stock is deemed to be undervalued, and usually people give a buy recommendation for that. So with fundamental analysis, you have income statements, balance sheets, cash flows, and other publicly available documents that are used to analyze the financial health of a company. So you also, a lot of times mostly people also take into account economic data such as the unemployment numbers, the interest rates, how it impacts that company. So there's a lot that goes into fundamental analysis. And many investors believe that fundamental analysis is an important component of almost any sort of trading or investment. And in fact, when I did start, so my grandfather is actually, he's dedicated his life to trading. And when I did start my journey, of course, he was the first person I did go to. And he told me at that time that the only thing, he has quite an old school of thought, but it's also important to recognize those. And he told me the only thing you need to know and you need to learn and you need to continuously keep learning is fundamental analysis. And that is the most important thing. But of course, that school of thought is totally different, but it is important to know that that is one thing you should focus on. So for people who are beginning their journeys, definitely do it, online courses. There are plenty on fundamental analysis, focus on that quite a bit. Now coming into technical analysis, this means examining and predicting price movements. And in financial markets by using historical price charts and different statistics. So a lot of times you might see on the news or on television or in movies, people who analyze these massive charts of price movements, like almost the one you can see on this photo. And that is what technical analysts actually do. They analyze the past prices to predict the future prices based on their movements. They use lots of different tools, different analysis like Bollinger Bands, moving averages. There are various different types that they kind of go through. Then we come into sentimental analysis, which is a growing trend in stock markets, and for traders and investors, people are emphasizing highly on that now. It basically refers to the overall consensus, the overall mood, the overall perception of a stock of the entire stock market, of the entire market in general. And when people say, market sentiments are bullish, that is when prices are usually rising. And when people say market sentiments are bearish, that is usually when prices are falling. Essentially, market sentiments are about feelings, emotions, perceptions. So it's very kind of subjective almost, and it's very difficult to narrow down and calculate and come to a definite answer of, because how many people's, how many articles do you have to go through, how many social media interactions you have to go to understand what is it really that the market is feeling. Because it's not always necessary that if the fundamental analysis or the technical analysis is telling you one thing, it's not necessary that the sentimental analysis will tell you the same thing. It might actually be the opposite. So in the long run, valuations may drive stock prices, but in the short term, it is actually market sentiments that move the prices. And this can create investment opportunities for long-term investors to find very attractive entry points. And for those who are active traders, it might help them in understand both entry and exit positions. So it involves, different techniques that can be used to complement fundamental and technical analysis. It's also, sentimental is also one of the most successful methods of including effective market psychology. And today's day and age, a lot of people have done a lot of research into understanding the importance of it, and it is truly growing. Nobody is now trading based on just fundamentals and technicals. People are looking at sentiments almost as importantly as anything else. So for the most part, sentiments should be combined with other forms of analysis to be useful. One should not only take consideration of that. Often the best opportunities do occur when sentiments and fundamentals do not agree, and that's something which people don't actually recognize. So empirical evidence also shows that extreme sentiment readings very often occur at turning points, and ultimately it does affect your stock prices in a great deal. So let's take a very small example, but something that you guys might relate to. So if you look for an extreme example of how social media influences stock prices, take a look at Kylie Jenner's tweet about Snapchat. So this was a few years ago, and I don't remember when it exactly was. Rishabh will probably know that better. But shortly after, she posted this tweet, which was something along the lines of, does anyone even use Snapchat anymore? It was something as basic as that. She posted this, she made this tweet, and the price of Snap, which is Snapchat's parent company, fell by almost 9%. And some players were able to benefit from that social media turmoil. And you see this a lot in a lot of the movies, that there was just a small message or a small tweet like this, and there was this crazy impact on the stock market. But it's actually true. This actually does happen. And a lot of people could have benefited from Kylie Jenner's tweet, and a lot of people lost millions just simply because of her tweet. So there are a lot of developments that are happening in sentimental analysis, and actually Dalal Street is part of that movement, because our entire AI is based very strongly on sentiments as well. So there are so many advances in technology and online media platforms over the past few decades. It's opening up so many possibilities to sentimental analysis. It's relatively new, but it's growing, and it's something that you guys should definitely take some interest into understanding. So let's move on to the next slide. Great. So I'm just going to run past this because this is something you can find online, and I'm sure you guys already have some sort of idea. But the key financial ratios that people do take into consideration while analyzing any sort of stocks or performance is liquidity ratios. These are employed by analysts to determine a firm's ability to pay its short-term liabilities. And this is very important to investors and traders, because if they're not able to pay their liabilities, you will essentially not get very much from them, especially if you're looking for dividends. So within liquidity ratio, there are various, current ratio is one, quick ratio is one. There are many that you go into. Then you have the profitability ratios, which measures the overall performance of the firm relative to its revenues, its assets, its equity. And some of the key profitability ratios here are return on asset, net profit margin, things like that. You have solvency ratios, and the list kind of carries on. This is something you can find online, and a lot of you who are doing finance courses, accounts, business courses, you might already be exposed to this. So let's move on to the next slide. Great. So, there are a lot of myths. These ones I'm sure all of you have come across, or you might actually have these preconceived notions in your mind. One big one is the fact that people say that you can't invest unless you have a lot of money. People easily presume that you can't start investing until you have a whole lot of money, and this makes investing, people say it's a rich people's game, but this is really not true. When I started my trading journey, I actually started with just a few hundred rupees. And if anybody asks me how much should I start trading or investing in, I usually say maximum with 1000 rupees. Don't even go beyond that. Because once you put in even the few 10 rupees, the 20s, the 30s, that's when you start getting serious. When you have a little bit to play with, that's when you get serious. That's when you actually start learning. So online courses, are great. Reading books are great. But what I learned was that was not enough. And only when I started putting that little money into the stock market, that's when my real learning curve actually began, because I was a bit more serious knowing that my money was in the markets. And when you actually do and execute it, that's when you learn what you're doing wrong, what you should have done. That's when you are actually interested in keeping in touch with the daily happenings, with the changes. So it's definitely not true that you can't invest unless you have a lot of money. And I would suggest to all that don't even start with beyond 1000 rupees. The second myth, which is a very common one again, is when people say it's easier for low price stocks to get doubled. And this myth sounds like it should be true. But people sometimes say, well, this stock is trading for $5 per share. So for your investment to double, it only needs to go up by $5 a share. But again, you have to remember that a single share of any stock represents a very tiny piece of the ownership in a real life company. So for a $5 stock to double to $10, that means that the entire market value of the entire company has to double in size. So which means that a lot more has to go into it than just that $5 that you think. Another one is that stock market is like gambling. And this one is very common among people who know close to nothing about stocks, because they know so little about the stock markets that they choose to believe it's random, unpredictable, and it's dangerous, which it can be if it is not approached the right way. But it is not a game of chance. It's really a game of skill, which involves you to do research. It involves you to do analysis. And if you think about it, it's almost as much of a risk as anything else in life is. But if you do it the right way, if you do the research, if you do the analysis the correct way, then you're not, it's not like a gamble. The fifth one is follow your instincts while investing. This is somewhat a myth, and in life we learn to trust our instincts. They usually serve us pretty well, hopefully they do. But investing is a whole different story. Making money with stocks is more of a analytical game than a gut game. You'll have a lot of times when your gut takes you to places, but eventually you see, and you will, especially with the stock markets, you will see that if you are not following the practices, if you are not playing the game the correct way, you will somehow kind of get into some sort of trouble, or you will face a great big loss, which, I'm sure everyone has seen the case of Harshad Mehta. You can look at that and you can see an example to that. Then there are various different myths, but I'm not going to go through them because we are kind of out of time at this point. So let's move on to the next slide. Great. So at this point, we are at the end of the webinar. The point of this webinar was really the first step into understanding what the stock markets are, because if you don't really understand what are the different factors that are involved, what are the different things that are involved, you can't really start investing appropriately. So if you do have any questions, we have a Discord channel. I'm going to get Omkar or Rishabh to share all these links with you on a chat or whatever, it's convenient. We have a Discord channel where people come on to ask and engage in conversations about trading, about artificial intelligence, about, coding, because these are the things that we focus on. We have a Medium blog, which is where we have a lot of articles. And I would like to open up that if any of you here today would like to write an article for us on Dalal Street, we do publicize it on all our social medias and things like that. You can feel free, and we'll have it posted on our Medium channel as yourself as the author. And of course, we have a YouTube channel for any other questions. And we'd be happy to get requests from you if you'd like us to cover specific topics. So Rishabh, Omkar, we are towards the end of this webinar. And if there are any few questions, we have gone over time. So let's just give 5 minutes for any Q&A. I see that there are already a few already here. So whenever you want, I can start answering them.
Yes, ma'am. So we can start the queries. You guys can ask your queries in the chat box. So Zad Ishrat is asking, ma'am, investing in in index means investing in a whole bunch of stock or buying one of the company stock from those index.
So essentially, an index is a measure. So you measure to see what is the market sentiment, what is that industry performing like, or what is that sector performing like, or what are those stocks, and then based on that you go on to choosing the stocks that you invest in or that you trade in. Essentially, that's what it is, an index. And there's that video. So it'll be great, Omkar, if once you're done with all of this, you can share those video links again, and that'll be great for everyone to understand in stock indexes in a lot more detail. So we had a question from Geeta earlier explaining IPO once more. So essentially what an IPO is, it's an initial public offering. This is when companies reach out to public investors to ask for funding. Essentially, that's what it is. So, for example, if a company like Burger King wants to increase the number of stores they have, increase the number of outlets they have, which is why they have actually put themselves on the stock market, why they have created this IPO. Then they go out to the publics to ask for funding so that they can accomplish this goal. So usually a company has a goal, or they have this amount of debt that they want to recover. So they are asking the public for funding, and in turn they give them a part of their company. So that's what an IPO really is.
So, ma'am, Navansh Agarwal is asking now that how much is the price if someone need to use dalalstreet.ai?
So if I didn't talk about dalalstreet.ai in this webinar because that wasn't the point of it, but let me give you guys a bit of an understanding on what it is. Essentially, it's an AI powered fund manager. So like what a fund manager would do for you, which is sentimental analysis, fundamental analysis, technical analysis, choosing which stocks you should do, our algorithm does that for you. Currently, we are at our beta testing 2 stage. So if you log on to our website, dalalstreet.ai, and you're interested in testing our beta, we have a couple hundred people testing our beta. So if you are interested, you can just sign up and apply for it. We have a few criteria, but of course, you guys have attended this webinar. I'd be more than happy to give you guys a look and feel of that. Just apply on our website. There's absolutely no charge for beta testing because all we are looking at this point is for your feedback to understand as a beginner trader or as an existing trader investor what it would be, what is it, the other features that you would like us to incorporate. So there's no charge at all. You can just apply for beta on dalalstreet.ai and I'd be more than happy to give you access. Which of the stock exchange is better for retail investors? So, we do have a lot of these questions when it comes to what stocks should we invest in, what are the sectors we should invest in. Rishabh, do you want to answer this question? I think we lost Rishabh.
The question was which of the stock exchange, right? So both the stock exchange is better, right? BSE or NSE. And as far as we see in which stocks to invest, right? So first of all, you need to first of all plan out whether you are a long-term or a short-term investor. Like long-term for like, let's say 1 to 2 years, short-term for like 1 to 5 months, right? So first of all, you look at the sectors. Okay, for example, let's say chemical sector, right? So what happens in chemical sector is that you first, there's a key starting material. You first process that material and get a reaction, right? And that again, you process that reaction and get to the finished product, which is the medicine, right? So the key starting material now, we import that from China, and China recently raised those prices, right? So the government of India is taking Make in India initiative to, to make those key starting materials in India. So there is a good future outlook for like 5 to 10 years in chemical industry. So you can look at this kind of thing. Like first look at the sectors, and then in that sector look at the stocks, various stocks. For example, Tata Chemicals, Clarion Chemical India. So that's the way you can look at it.
Great. So that is kind of, when people do ask us these questions, because it's so subjective, as I mentioned, when you choose stock to invest and trade in, you have to understand what is your motive. What are you looking to gain from it? Are you looking to gain quick money? Are you looking to have long-term investments? What are you really wanting to gain from it? So it's very subjective, and that's why we don't like to really give a lot of recommendations based on just pure stocks. So we have a question from Vanaj. What is algo trading? So algo trading is not something that Dalal Street actually does, if that's kind of where the question is leading to. Algo trading is when an algorithm, you put in money into an algorithm and it trades on your behalf based on whatever analysis is doing. But at the Last Street, we are simply an algo advisory. So we advise you, but the end decision is based on you. You have to actually execute the trade on your own. These are for a few reasons. Firstly, there's not a lot of trust, even though we're all intrigued by AI when it comes to actually spending your own money and trusting a machine. There's not a lot of trust still in the world, especially in India. Secondly, every stock exchange and stock market has different regulations and rules, which allows a certain amount of algo trading. So in India, it's not very transparent. It's not foolproof at the moment, which is why we're not diving into algo trading right now. So we have another question, which is, what is future and options? So future and options is another big study. And, we'd be really happy if you want to go into all these derivatives to do a detailed one. This one, we forced ourselves to focus on just the beginners because we understood that most of you are beginners to this. So futures and options are, they're kind of like stock derivatives that are traded in the share market. So they're contracts that are signed by two parties for trading a stock or an asset at a predetermined price on a later date. So, it goes into a lot of detail, but essentially it's a sort of agreement of, trading or investing at a later point or acquiring that share at a later point. Rishabh, anything you want to add on that? I know you've done some research on that too.
Sorry, there was a network issue. I can't hear properly.
No worries. I was just asking whether you wanted to add anything in futures and options just quickly, if there's anything you wanted to add.
So, okay, as far as I know, so if I see myself, I don't do futures and option trading. Everyone has told me that it's kind of risky. It's a derivative, right? So, if we see futures, apart from that, there is forwards. So forward comes under OTC market, that is in USA, right? And we don't have forwards market in India. We have futures market. So futures, so stock exchange, of course, undertake futures market. So it is liquid first of all, and there is counterparty. There is no counterparty risk. Stock market will ensure that the trade is happening from the other side, right? So it's good to invest in futures, not in forwards.
Okay, thanks for that, Rishabh. So for me, I always learn through personal experiences because that's something that you can't find on Google, which is why through the webinar, I always try to give you a few of my own personal examples. And that's why I asked Rishabh to also give his opinion, because personal experiences is something you can't find online. And if you guys are taking out the time to hear us, then you must also get some personal experiences from us. So we have a question from Chetan, and we are running out of a bit of time, so I'm going to take that as the last question. Will chart or graph of a company isn't enough to judge the company's future performance for investments? So in my personal opinion, no. I think it's very important to do all three forms of analysis, whether it's technical, fundamental, or sentimental analysis. A lot of times, all three say very different things, but you need to understand all three of a company before you actually make a decision on it. So charts and graphs are not the only thing. There are lots of other indicators that you need to be looking at to judge the future, even the current, even the past performance of an investment or of a company. So let's wrap this session up for now. It was great speaking to all of you. Thank you for taking out a time on Saturday. I know all of you would rather be chilling somewhere else and not spending this time with us. But I hope you learned a lot from this. And if you are interested, if you'd like us to go into a lot more detail, we'd be very happy to give you a detailed webinar. If you are interested in testing our beta, I'd be very happy to give you access. We actually are only giving access to a handful of people because the aim is to get valuable feedback. But nevertheless, you guys have attended this webinar, and I'd be very happy to give you access. So just go and apply on our website. Also, we have our Discord channel, etc., which is on this chat. We're on social media. If there's anything, any way you'd like to communicate with us, please feel free. You can reach out to me or Rishabh on LinkedIn, on email, anything you like. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions that we can. Thank you again for taking the time.
Please allow me to wind up, ma'am.
Sure, of course, Rishabh.
I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Ms. Sarini Gupta and Mr. Rishabh Jain on behalf of the Commerce Association of PGDAV College Evening. I want to thank you for your insightful presentation. It definitely made us aware of new things which we could have missed before exploring the world of stock market. and being able to listen to a professional like you is a blessing for all of us. The students who attended really enjoyed your presentation, and particularly the way you helped us clear the very basics and making it an easy process for many of us. The personal experiences Tarini ma'am shared with us definitely will be a confidence booster for the beginners. We appreciate you making time in your busy schedule to speak to us. We hope you will consent to speak to us again, perhaps next year. Thank you, ma'am. And on behalf of the Commerce Association, now I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Principal, Dr. R.K. Gupta sir, our teachers, as without their support and guidance, it would not have been possible, and to all of you who have participated in the webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, and it was really nice to be here with all of you. I hope we can connect in the future. I've also put down my email. Rishabh, if you want to put your email, LinkedIn, anything, please feel free. But otherwise, you can reach out to Rishabh. He has all my contact details. And Rishabh, please feel free. If there's any way we can ever help anyone out, we'd love to. And see you guys soon. Hopefully, have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It was good to
Thank
be here.
you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, sir.